Hello there, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of our Nuclear Revenge, where you'll hear stories about lives getting turned upside down. Today's episode features 5 stories. The first story is about a neighborhood coming together to take down a cruel neighbor. The second story is about a mother who faces consequences for how she treats her kids. This episode is going to be a long one, as you can probably tell, so make sure you have some time and buckle up because it's a wild ride. I hope you stay for the stories today and subscribe for future videos. This first story is titled, Don't Mess with the Sweet Old Lady's Cat. When the neighborhood has a kid who knows everyone, things can get interesting. A little about me first. I was a scrappy kid and knew everyone in the neighborhood. I made money babysitting kids and knew the older kids because I was allowed to roam freely. I'm also one of those people that others confide their deepest secrets in, and I've earned a lot of trust in my neighborhood. I was a pack leader, and people generally followed my lead. Okay, enough about me. On to the revenge. This is a bit of a long story, but you'll enjoy it. This is an old story from when I was young. I can't remember my exact age, but it was around 9 or 10, which would have been in the early 1990s. I lived in a small neighborhood with not many kids, and the ones there were mostly older teens. The majority of the community consisted of older people. The neighborhood was built in the early 1940s and filled up with people after the war, many of whom stayed there. On the block south of me was this old guy who pretty much hated everyone. If something accidentally went into his yard, like a ball or a frisbee, he would take it and destroy it right in front of the kids. One time a kid parked his bike right outside the guy's home on city property, and this guy took the bike and destroyed it. He also had a major vendetta against cats. He hated them, and to this day I'll never know why. We didn't have a feral cat problem, but many people, including my own family, had cats that were both indoor and outdoor. We weren't on a main road, so there was little traffic, and most of the cats didn't go far from home. They usually just roamed the streets, not causing any trouble, and they always came home at night, unless they ended up in this old guy's yard. He started by trapping cats and taking them to the pound. Many families in the neighborhood would get calls about their cats being turned in and would have to go get them. My family, who were well known at the pound since my mother was an animal lover, would get calls to inform us that one of our cats was there. When the guy found out that trapping cats wasn't getting rid of them, he escalated. He started poisoning them using antifreeze, but many lived because the symptoms were caught early enough. So he decided to escalate again, and that's when things got serious. Suddenly, cats all over the neighborhood were dying, and nobody could figure out why. It wasn't until the cat of a sweet old lady got out of the house that things came to light. The cat that belonged to this lady was an indoor cat who managed to run out when she opened the door to grab a parcel. 3 days later, the cat showed back up, sick and dying. This woman was not poor, and the cat was a costly one. She loved that cat dearly. She took the cat to the vet, and it was determined that the cat had a belly filled with glass shards. The damage was too severe, and the cat died while at the vet's office. The woman was furious. This news spread around the neighborhood, and it was me who told her that I thought I knew who did it. I thought this because, since my mom and I were frequent visitors to the pound, she became friends with someone there. That person told my mother who it was that kept bringing in cats. With a little prodding, we found that all the cats from our neighborhood were brought in by the same person. I took this information and told the wonderful older woman who I thought did it. She was a firecracker. She got into her Cadillac, rolled up to this old guy's house, and confronted him. I was a bit of a free-roaming kid back then, and had to be home by the time the streetlights came on, so I made sure to ride my bike over to see what the fireworks would be like. She pulled into his driveway, got out of the car, and pounded on his door. I mean, really pounded. He opened the door, and she began softly, saying that something terrible had happened to her cat, and she was just going door to door, trying to find out if anyone knew what happened. This guy responded with a dismissive humph reaction. I wasn't close enough to hear everything that was said, but I was close enough to hear what happened next. The sweet old lady went from 0 to furious in about half a second. She poked her finger into his chest and said, "I think it was you, you miserable jerk. I know you've been taking cats to the pound, and I bet you're the one who killed my princess." This guy just smirked and said, "Yeah, glass cat food and some catnip will always work to get those destructive animals out of the neighborhood. I'll keep on doing it, and you can do nothing to stop me." I didn't hear what she said next, but she got back into her car and drove off. I was good friends with the sweet old lady and often spent time at her house after school because she was alone and needed some company. She was always very kind to me. When I went over next, I asked what happened after she left. She told me she called the cops, but without concrete proof, there was nothing they could do. When they spoke with the guy, he admitted to trapping cats and taking them to the pound but never said anything about the glass. The sweet old lady was beside herself because she wanted justice for Princess. I smiled an evil smile and said, "Don't worry, you'll get justice." She looked at me, smiled, and nodded her head. You see, this all happened in the first part of October. I knew just about every kid and teen in the neighborhood since I was free roaming, and I told them all what happened. The total was about 20 kids and teens. I told them all what I thought we should do and laid out the entire plot. We all worked to get the things we needed. When Halloween rolled around, I was unfortunately not able to participate because I was grounded at the time, but I did find out about the aftermath. On Halloween night, about 15 people converged on his house. They found out he was going to be gone that night. His car was still there, but a neighbor relayed to the group that he'd left in a car with someone else. The group shattered every window and mirror in his car. Once the windows were broken, they opened the door and destroyed the interior. They then popped the hood, unscrewed the oil cap, and poured in sand. They broke every window in the house, including a sliding glass door in his backyard. All the screens were shredded, and they put superglue in all the door locks and superglued the mailbox shut. Once the screen was torn, they gained entry. They didn't steal anything, but they did destroy the inside of the house. They spray-painted the words for Princess on a wall inside the home. Polaroids were taken, and I got to see the destruction. From what I was told, this took about 3 hours in total, and neither of the neighbors next to him nor across the street said a thing or called the cops. The group left and went back to their homes like it was just a typical Halloween night. I found out from the neighbors that the total amount of damage was around $20,000. It seems the group destroyed some very precious items that he had. Now, the one thing they did that I'm not proud of is they dumped the urn that contained his late wife's ashes. I think that was a low blow, but I still believed he deserved it. It took him about a year to get everything fixed. He told a neighbor that his car insurance would not cover the damage to the car, and he had to buy a new car, adding another $15,000 to $20,000 on top of the total. The police were called, but there was nothing found. This was all before DNA and all the fancy CSI stuff, so it was just dust for Prince and be on their merry way. He tried to go after the sweet old lady, but it fizzled. There was no proof that she had anything to do with it. The great thing about all this is that there was never another cat that vanished from the area. He died a year before I left the neighborhood at 18, and from what I heard from a neighbor, he was still raging about what happened to anyone who would listen. Once I was able to roam again, I went to the sweet old lady and showed her the pictures. She just smiled and gave me $20. She lived for another 3 years and was wonderful during that time. That was pretty nuclear, and I'd say the old guy deserved it for all the cats he harmed. But the urn thing really got to me. Do what you want to the old guy, but dumping his wife's ashes was a little too much. I'm going to tell myself that she was a mean old hag just like him so I can sleep at night. Also, I'm pretty sure DNA testing did exist in the 1990s. Someone tell me if I'm wrong. This next story is titled, "Destroy My Childhood, Ruin My Chance at College, and Laugh When I Said I Was Homeless. I'll Ruin Your Life." Here's the backstory. My mother was a really terrible person. I have 4 other siblings, 1 older sister and 3 who are much younger, from 3 different dads. I'm a male, by the way. My dad went to jail 2 to 3 years after I was born for a while, and I rarely saw him. He's an alcoholic, if that matters. My mother was a single mother, but she made it work and worked hard. One of the bigger problems was that she took all of her aggression and hatred of my father out on me, as well as her work stress. I was treated like absolute garbage from the age of 4 to about 17. Every day was hell. She was extremely strict, and her perspective was warped. She was also pretty big in stature and had a lot of strength. Examples of how she treated me include: first, I was beaten badly once because her room was dirty. Second, if the dishes weren't washed, I got beaten as soon as I got home, and on a few occasions, there weren't even dishes when I left for school. Third, if I walked too loudly around the house, I'd get beaten. She also broke my nose for looking at her the wrong way on my 10th birthday when she brought me a cake that I was allergic to. It was more or less every day or every other day. She used her fists, elbows, extension cords, hangers, chairs, canes, bats. Whatever she could find within arm's reach was her weapon of choice. I couldn't ever escape to my room for long because she would always call me every few minutes to get her things or to yell at me. The funny thing was, she never drank or did drugs or anything. Oh yeah. And she's put a knife to my neck before and had to be forcibly stopped by her boyfriend at the time. The only thing I will say is she tried really hard to make up for it with video games and electronics, but it didn't make a difference for me. It never helped. She controlled most aspects of my life. I got by with little petty revenges, such as peeing in the drink she'd force me to get her. By the time I got to high school, I turned to alcohol. I resented her, and the negative atmosphere affected who I was as a person. I started to be cold, uncaring, and calculated. She started kicking me out of the house every few months, telling me to find somewhere else to live. By the age of 15, she sent me away to a different country for a year and tried to keep my passport, but I made it back to the US with the help of the embassy and my stepfather. I came back my senior year with no credits for the prior grade, which ended with me getting a GED. I spent most of the time I could with my best friend and started working whatever jobs I could find. I was terrible at saving, as I'd accumulated lots of bad habits while growing up, and it didn't make much of a difference. She eventually told me that if I went to college, I would always have a place to live until I finished. Cue my first 2 semesters at a 2-year college. I maintained a 3.7 GPA. My teachers loved me, and it was my escape. Toward the end of my second semester, during finals, I came home late one night around 10 p.m., and my mother yanked the door open, screaming in my face, asking when I'd move out. I was slightly drunk and decided to completely ignore her and walk to my room. I've rarely ever raised my voice at her because it's never ended well. Now, at this point, I was 19, and I'd been doing school full-time with no savings. I got to my room, and she ripped my door open and started yelling. I said nothing and stared at her. She walked away and called the police on me, saying she was afraid that I was crazy and would harm her and my younger siblings. I don't know where she got the idea from, as she's the one who's held a knife to people before. I packed everything into a duffel bag and left 5 minutes afterward. I failed all of my finals because I couldn't make it to my school. Things kind of spiraled, and the next 2 to 3 years were me on and off homeless. I survived the best I could in a big city with no college degree and made bad choices due to my really bad habits. Eventually, I found a profitable hobby that gave me meaning, and through that, I started to work my way up. I got my own apartment, had a full-time job, and did my hobby on the side. I hadn't kept up contact with my mother at all, but my younger sister, who was old enough to have a phone, found me on social media. So, I saw photos and such. My mother reached out to me via email, all smiles, asking how I'd been. Now, I've always been envious of the relationship that most people have with their moms, so I gave her a chance and gave her a call. We talked for a few minutes, and everything was civil and seemed like things would go okay. Then she asked me what I'd been up to in the last few years, and I told her honestly that I was homeless for a while and struggled a lot after what she did to me, but I worked my way out of it. She literally laughed at me. She laughed for a few seconds in a very condescending kind of chuckle and said, "I never did a thing to you, so I don't even know what you're talking about. It's your own darn fault that you were homeless." At that point, I hung up. I was speechless and fuming. "You did nothing to me? Okay. I've spent too long letting you destroy my sanity. Now is the time." There were a few things my mother didn't know. First, I knew for a fact that her current well-paying job was obtained through lies, and she never got her college degree but lied about it on her resume. Second, I had access to all of her email accounts and cloud storage accounts since I was the one who set them up when I was younger, and she never changed her passwords. Lastly, she definitely wasn't aware that from 13 years old until the last time she hit me, I took photos of all of my bruises, marks, wounds, and bloody noses, saving them to my computer and then Google Drive. On top of that, my little sister had been sending me photos via social media of the bruises she got from my mom. The first thing I did was compile all of those photos and videos into one folder. I then reached out to CPS in my city and explained that I was worried about my younger siblings, how I was abused in the past, and I had mountains of proof. Since I'd called the cops on my mother before, and because of what happened with my older sister, there was an immediate home visit. They arrived almost a day later with police, and coincidentally my mother was literally in the process of taking her anger out on my younger sister while they were knocking. This led to an emergency removal of all of my siblings from the house, and my mother getting arrested, though she was released hours later. I sent CPS all of the evidence, and there's a legitimate case against my mother now. The next day I smiled and then called up her job to inform them that she had lied about having a necessary college degree, as well as about her current events in her life, which sparked a background check. She was fired days later. Say goodbye to $75,000 and a blacklist in the only industry you know how to work in. I then spitefully deleted every single cloud account and email address I'd ever made for her, which I'm sure will make keeping up with a lot of bills nearly impossible. I then anonymously reported her to the IRS because of the tax fraud she committed for years by claiming people's children who weren't hers, with a lot of detailed information since I lived with her while she did it. So now, my mother lost all of her kids and her job. I'm meeting with a caseworker from CPS next week to talk more about what happens moving forward, but I do know the kids will not be going back. I don't know how she's going to pay her mortgage now and survive, and I'm sure she's going to get a call from the IRS, who will be looking for a few $1,000s that she owes them. She also has to go back to court in a few months. I'm not exactly sure what she was charged with, but I'll update when I find out how things turn out. She has no idea that I'm the cause of any of this. I plan on keeping tabs on her and waiting until it seems like she's close to rock bottom before I tell her it was all me and that I peed in her iced tea all those years. I hope you're doing well now, Opie, and that your brothers and sisters are safe. I'm pretty sure you've saved your siblings from years of pain from being in your mother's care. This next story is titled A Box of Revenge. Here's the background for the first story. My ex was cheating on me for 2.5 years during our 6-year relationship. She lived with her parents on the other side of the state when I moved away for college. I later found out through a mutual close friend who accidentally spilled the beans. At that point, my relationship with her was over. Fast forward to a few months ago when I was cleaning out my apartment to move again. I found a ton of her stuff, including various intimate items like harnesses, restraints, whips, and large probes. You know, all the spicy stuff. I put it in a box, intending to get rid of it. I was super resentful of her at this point. Cue one bad night of drinking and venting to a vengeful friend who hated her guts from day one. She gave me the idea to ship all of her items to my ex's address, with her mom and dad's name on the box, along with a letter that explained exactly what happened, what she did to me, and why I stopped seeing her after 6 years. I didn't think much of it and signed off with, "Your daughter left a few things at my apartment when we broke up. I haven't been able to reach her, and she'll probably want these lovely items back to use with her new boyfriend, John. She probably misses these items. She used to love the hours we spent in the bedroom with them. The whip and the big black one were her favorites. Oh, and a side note, her parents are super conservative Christians, very religious. I can't emphasize very enough, but trust me." Her dad received the package on Friday and messaged me today saying, "Thanks for making me aware of what my sinful daughter has done to you. Please, don't think badly of us. We were unaware this had happened, and the situation has been taken care of." I heard from a friend through Facebook that taken care of meant she was kicked to the curb, kicked out of the house and entirely excommunicated from her family. Her parents want nothing to do with her and won't speak to her. That college degree her parents were paying for? They stopped funding it. She was left homeless with nowhere to go. She couldn't move in with the new guy she was seeing because John didn't have the space to take her in. According to her Facebook status, she was desperately looking for a roommate to split rent with or someone with an extra room in their house that she could rent. So, not only did I get back at her in the simplest and most spiteful way, I never expected a life-altering nuclear revenge that probably ruined her chance at a stable life. Who knows what will happen from here on out? I can only imagine the look on her parents' faces when they opened the box and saw that their innocent, pure child was not who they thought she was. I also wonder if the original poster cut ties with that mutual close friend who accidentally spilled the beans. To me, I don't know which person was worse in this story, the mutual close friend who kept the secret for who knows how long, or the girl who cheated for 2.5 years. Let me know what you guys think, because betrayal on both sides is equally terrible. This next story is titled, A Spicy Revenge. In college, I met the woman I thought was the one. We dated for about 2 years and had a big wedding after a 10-month engagement. Her family was pretty well-to-do in a small southern town. We were both continuing our education and I was also working to support us. I was pursuing a master's in engineering while she was finishing her doctorate in anthropology. Over the summer, an opportunity came up for her to make some extra money going to Jamaica as a religious aide. I didn't hesitate when she asked me about it. I mean, she was going to visit Jamaica and get paid for it. I saw no downside, other than missing her at home for 6 weeks. Little did I know at the time she had been cheating on me with her professor. He'd hung out with us, smoked my weed, and drank my beer. I considered him a friend. He was the one who arranged the trip, and basically, it was a getaway for them to be together all over the island. I was clueless and happy during those weeks while she was gone, taking extra shifts so I could match what she made in our account and surprise her. One of the students from the trip actually sought me out to clue me in. I didn't believe him until I started looking for evidence on my own. I broke down and checked her texts while she was sleeping, but nothing was there. Then I found a few voice messages and decided to listen. There it was, A message from him saying how exciting it was that I almost caught them. I opened her laptop and found hidden emails, piles and piles of messages making fun of me for not knowing they were together in our bed and laughing about it. There was so much, and I was so heartbroken. Still too hurt to take any action, I was lost. I had no idea what to do, so I sat on it for a couple of weeks and acted as normally as I could. I noticed everything now and felt so stupid for not seeing it before. Looking back, there were so many signs. One stuck out in particular. Our stash of homemade cannabis lubricant was going down, even though we weren't really using it. It was obvious they were using the fruits of my labor to enhance their time together. This really infuriated me, like Hulk-level anger. It finally all hit me I was a complete joke to these two, and they were using the lubricant I made while she was cheating on me in our bed. At that point, I no longer hurt. I just wanted to make them hurt. While she was studying at the library, I made a new batch of lubricant. I put enough cannabis in it for it to smell normal, but I also added some poison ivy that I got. After refilling the spray bottle we used for application, I waited a few days working extra so I could be out of the house more often, and bam, the bait was taken. That night, after she went to sleep, my plan went into action. I snuck her phone away, deleted my contact, and replaced his phone number in her phone with mine. I went to bed but couldn't sleep. It felt like I was 5 again and tomorrow was Christmas. Dawn arrived and she was in the bathroom getting ready for a shower. Or rather he, immediately got a text as soon as she was in there. The text said, "I'm super itchy. Are you okay? Now was my time." I replied, "Look, I thought it cleared up, but I guess I had a flare-up. I'm sorry, but I've got herpes, and I'm sorry it had to come to light this way, but now I guess you have it too." I heard this squeak from the shower. I was covering my mouth, trying not to lose it. I went on texting her as him, with her totally clueless. I told her it was time to end things now that a new semester was about to start, and I kind of had a little crush on another teacher's assistant. I wanted her mad. This was a woman who had never been told no growing up and never had to deal with rejection, let alone from a balding dude in his 50s with herpes. When she got out of the shower, it was obvious she'd been crying, but I could see the anger in her eyes. I could see how uncomfortable she was, squirming at the table, drinking coffee, and mulling the situation over. Another little nudge was what she needed. The reply I sent to her paragraphs of angry and sad texts was, "Thanks for the good times, but can you keep this a secret between us? I don't want to ruin my chances with anybody else we may know." She was flushed with anger now, just seething. She took her keys and headed out the door without even saying goodbye to me. I knew where she was going. I booted up her laptop and set it to reformat, deleting her dissertation and notes pertaining to it, before following her to campus. I parked a few lots over and rushed to his office. I found her screaming at him for giving her herpes. She was loud and there were lots of people there, professors, aides, students, other faculty. I was dying inside with laughter. He was beyond embarrassed and confused, and she was ugly crying in front of her peers. I was in heaven. The fallout was apocalyptic. He lost his job due to the university's code of conduct, and we got divorced the following year because state law required us to be separated for 1 full year before being granted a divorce. I got to keep most of the assets, primarily savings. Not a ton, but I worked for it. She never finished her doctorate and went on to become a perpetually pregnant housewife who sells Herbalife on Facebook. He now teaches high school. It took a few years for it all to unfold, but watching it was glorious. Oh, what a wonderful revenge! She lost her chance at getting her doctorate and having a great career, only to join a multi-level marketing scheme. But don't worry, everybody in Herbalife makes millions and retires at 40, right? Everybody knows that. So maybe it'll work out for her in the end. Probably not, but who knows? This next story is titled A Truthful Takedown. When I first met my husband, he was ideal. He was what I thought I needed. I believed I loved him and that the fairy tale was real. We met by random chance, both many hours away from our homes, me while running away from a situation at home, and he while on a trip abroad. I ended up in Europe within a month, and we married about 10 months later. All good, right? Well, it was until I started racking up multiple university degrees with honors, and he began to realize that I was younger, more attractive, and now significantly better educated. He was always a bit insecure, but the degrees seemed to really push him over the edge. While I was waiting for my spousal visa, things were falling apart. We both kind of gave up, but decided to resolve to save our relationship. I moved, but nothing he promised to prepare had happened. The home situation was a mess. We were living with his widowed father, and he was supposed to be taking care of him and the household. None of this was happening. Instead, both he and his deplorable sister were essentially living as leeches off their 80-something father. I tried to make things work, but within a week and a half of landing, he threw an iPad at my head and punched a hole in the wall right next to my head while screaming that he could have me deported anytime he wanted. Okay, fine. I made a promise, so I kept trying, but it got worse. I endured months of emotional insults, threats, cursing, and everything else short of him actually laying hands on me. 6 months later, he randomly disappeared for 2 weeks to visit Seattle without mentioning it to me. I left. I started over with nothing much to my name but a job and a bit of money, thousands of kilometers away from anyone I knew. He expected me to run home, but I didn't falter. I blossomed. About a year later, I met my present partner, who's been the truest and most loyal partner I've ever wished for. Truly, if I had to do it all again, I would, if I knew my partner would be on the other side. Now for my revenge. I happened to find out that he had a new girlfriend who seemed very serious, and I noticed he had mentioned wedding planning on social media. She's welcome to him. The only issue is, due to divorce laws in my current country, we were not divorced yet, and he planned on marrying her in another country. When we met, he told me he'd never been married. I later found out that he was, in fact, divorced. I was willing to bet he fed her the same exact lie. So I sent her a message, and my suspicions were confirmed. He told her he had never been married. I was wife number 2. She didn't want to believe it until I sent her a photo of our marriage license, as well as a few wedding photos. I did feel really bad about doing that to her because I could tell how hurt she was, but I knew it was better for her to know the truth than to marry him the next month in Seattle as they'd planned. She has children, and she and I actually ended the conversation on a positive note, with her thanking me and me apologizing and explaining why I felt I had to tell her. Then came the fallout. My phone started blowing up from an unknown number in the evening. I wonder who that might be. I was out enjoying a lovely dinner with my partner, and I answered the call on speaker. In came the usual threats to my person and security, blah blah blah. I could only laugh. He did not know where I was, nor was he getting past my partner, who I know could more than protect me from that insecure little man. I could finally relax, knowing I was safe after months of night terrors. Then we all heard it on the phone. He screamed, "I've lost the love of my life because of you. She's left me and thrown all of my things out of her home." I, along with other people around me, lost it. I could not stop laughing. It was poetic. He sent a similar email to my mother, laced with blatant lies about me. After I finished laughing, I hung up on him and had my number changed. Then I remembered his sister was living at the same home. His sister has a disabled daughter who lives 200 kilometers away, for whom she claims benefits, including an apartment and money allowances. She then sublets the handicapped accessible apartment to her boyfriend illegally while leeching off their father. My ex and his sister absolutely despise each other and are only both living there in hopes of driving the other one out to get the house as an inheritance. If she got reported to the council for fraud, they'd have to investigate. They'd see that she was falsely claiming benefits for an adult daughter who lived far away and had her own benefits from another council. She would lose her apartment and possibly face jail time. If she lost her apartment, it was certain she would never leave the father's home. It was my husband's worst nightmare. So, I made it happen. The thought of them both being stuck in the same house, fighting all day and night, both too lazy to leave and too stubborn to give up the inheritance they fantasize about, that's a lovely thought to me. What makes it better is knowing that he cried his eyes out over his lost fiancée in that very same house, soaking in his miserable existence. As a reader dropping a comment on these stories, I'm absolutely hooked on the mix of clever revenge, poetic justice, and downright nuclear fallout. These tales are a roller coaster of emotions, from outrage at entitled behavior to pure satisfaction when the bad guys get what's coming. Here's my take on each, written like I'm chiming in on a forum. Don't mess with the sweet old lady's cat. This one's a wild ride. The old guy poisoning cats with glass shards is straight up monstrous. Poor princess. The sweet old lady confronting him and the kid army wrecking his house and car on Halloween. That's nuclear-level revenge. Spray painting for princess and supergluing his locks is peak petty, but dumping his wife's ashes was a bit much, like the commenter said. Still, $35,000 in damages and no more cat deaths? Justice served. The commenter's right about DNA existing in the 90s, but no CSI back then meant the kids got away clean. Got any other neighborhood vigilante stories like this? Destroy my childhood, ruin my chance at college, and laugh when I said I was homeless? I'll ruin your life? Oh man, this is heartbreaking and savage. OP's mom abusing them for years and laughing off their homelessness is pure evil. Compiling years of bruise photos and getting CPS to remove their siblings while tanking her job and reporting her tax fraud? That's a calculated nuclear takedown. The anonymous IRS report and deleted cloud accounts are the cherry on top. Bet she's scrambling now. The commenters' hope for the siblings' safety is so real, OP's a hero for protecting them. Anyone else turn the tables on an abusive parent like this? A box of revenge? This ex getting her spicy stuff shipped to her conservative parents with a brutal letter? Savage. Kicking her out and cutting her college funding is a massive fallout for her cheating. The commenters' debate about who's worse, the ex or the friend who spilled the beans, is tough, but 2.5 years of cheating takes the cake. The parent's sinful daughter reaction is intense. Bet that box opening was a shock. Ever pulled off a revenge this personal and petty? A spicy revenge. Poison ivy in the cannabis lube? That's next-level evil genius. The ex and her professor mocking Op while using his stuff is infuriating, but tricking her into thinking she got herpes and tanking her doctorate is pure chaos. Reformatting her laptop to erase her dissertation? Brutal. The public screaming match at the university is the icing on the cake. The commenter's Herbalife jab is hilarious. MLMs are no happy ending. Got any other stories of catching a cheater with a trap this wild? A truthful takedown. OP exposing their lying ex's secret marriage to his new fiancé is such a clean, devastating move. The sisters' benefit fraud report to trap them both in their dad's house fighting forever? That's pro-level revenge. The phone call meltdown with him crying over losing the love of his life is so satisfying. The commenter's note about OP blossoming after leaving is wholesome. Love the happy ending with the new partner. Ever dropped a truth bomb that unraveled someone's life like this? That's it for today's episode of Nuclear Revenge. Let me know if you think these stories deserved a nuclear badge or not. If you aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button and make sure you turn on notifications so you don't miss future nuclear revenge stories. See you guys in the next one.